Hello, how are you doing? Thanks for joining me again. I hope you're well. You find me here in a woodland wilderness. Lots of fallen trees, lots of moss and things that could make interesting nature shots. I just needed to get away from the town, people, have some space to myself here, birdsong, the occasional aircraft going over, and just take a breath. And I thought it was a good opportunity to shoot some medium format film because I've got the Mamiya RB67 with me, and there's been a roll of 120 Phoenix which I've had for months meaning to shoot, waiting for a sunny day when I was out and about and I could get some nice shots. That sunny day has not appeared, but I think that the greens, the mosses and things, I could get some nice pictures with it. I've got both backs with me. I've got the 645 back and I've got the 6x7 back. I'll probably go for the 645 so I've got more images to play with. And I'm also going to use the cable release on the leaf shutter to try and get no motion blur at all. So without further ado, I'm going to load up and then try and find some nice compositions. I think it's going to be difficult because although there's all sorts around me, it's quite a jumble and it's going to be really hard to find a pleasing composition, but that's the challenge I will try and set myself for today, and hopefully I will be able to do so without the interruptions that you tend to get when you're working on a busy street in the town. Right, let's crack on. Let's get this loaded up. So yeah, I think we'll go with the 645 back, and we've got the Phoenix there, so let's get that loaded. I did have problems with light leaks with this, hopefully they are in the past now, but we will see. 8th 2026, so still plenty of time left on this film, although I've had it lying around for ages. Go. Right, let's pop it on, pop that in there. That's there. There we go. There we are on number one. Right, let's go and find our first port of call. So I think I've found my first location. Had a bit of a wander around, and that's the thing about shooting medium format. You've got to be slow, you've got to take your time, you've got to be purposeful. Setting up, putting away, taking light meter readings, it all is a lot of hassle, a lot of work. You don't want to set up if you're not going to take a picture. You've got to be sure of it, and that's why usually you get a better hit rate of good shots at the end of the day. Anyway, there's some nice fungi here, there's some overturned trees over here, there's some nice green moss over here. There were some red berries over there as well, and they might make a good subject. I've got my little mini tripod, which is as stable as it needs to be because I'm going to be going low to the ground or using tree stumps as my bases. And I've got my light meter app on my phone, and I've done a quick reading already, and it's saying to get a very narrow aperture, because I want to get front to back sharpness, I'm going to go for about f22, 1/30th of a second, which I wouldn't want to do hand holding, but with the tripod and cable release, not a problem at all. I'm rating the film at 140. It's a Phoenix 200. I always rate it at 100 to 160 because it seems to produce better results that way. Fingers crossed it is true in this case as well. Right, so let us crack on. So let's find somewhere to pop this down. It's quite mushy and marshy around here. First of all, fix the tripod on. And make sure that it is tightly secured. There we go. Right. The other thing that is important is that I'm using the 645, and that requires this mask so that I don't think that I have more area to work with than I actually have. Let's get that on there. Sometimes it's a bit of a struggle to get it on. Feels like it's attached. Is it? Or is it not? Yes, that feels good. Yep. That is working. And we are going to use the cable release here. Now, I've not done this for a while. It attaches into the lens there. And you can actually do it so that it doesn't use the mirror. And I'm going to try that as well so that we can avoid any mirror slap. Right, so I was saying at 30th of a second, f22. That should be good. So yeah, I think this one came out okay. The greens are nice, the colours are quite vibrant without being overdone. The Phoenix has behaved itself at 140 ISO, and I could actually go in and get more detail out of this because of the size of the negative if I wanted to. So not a bad start. So here we've got basically swamp with some tree stumps in it there. I think that might make quite a nice shot. So I'll just take a light meter reading and get set up. Yeah, not so successful this one. It's just a bit of a jumble, isn't it? You can see the reflections in the water and the colours have come out quite nicely, and there is the front to back sharpness that I was hoping for, but it's just a bit of a boring composition. There is no fixed point of interest. Yeah, not a great one. So here's an interesting little bit with fallen branches, and that could make a good shot, but there's nowhere to actually set the tripod. It's too marshy underfoot, so I'm going to have to hand hold it a 60th of a second at f3.8, and we'll see what we get. Yeah, I quite like this one. It's possibly slightly overexposed. You can see the halation coming through, which is a feature of the Phoenix film. It's not so obvious at 120, but it is still there. And the colours are a little bit washed out, but I like the composition, the verticals and then the horizontals cutting across that, and it is very much a desolate wasteland. I'd zoomed in a bit closer. I didn't zoom in, I walked in, not a zoom lens. I walked in and I got a different shot, and this one I prefer the darkness and the way the moss sort of luminously comes out of the picture at you, but it is slightly soft because again I wasn't using the tripod here, so I wasn't able to handhold completely still. So one thing to be aware of when you're shooting using the mirror up function, so you don't get the shake from the mirror, is that you first cock the shutter and release the shutter with the normal shutter button, and then you release with the cable release for the leaf shutter, and that's what actually makes the exposure. So between you releasing the ordinary shutter release and the cable release, everything in the viewfinder is dark because the mirror's gone up, so you can't see what you're doing. So that shouldn't be an issue when you're on a tripod if you've got a static subject. But if you're photographing wildlife that's moving, or if for some reason you're hand holding or you want to move the camera to change the composition, you won't be able to see what you've got. So that is just something to bear in mind. You don't get the mirror slap, but you can't see exactly what you're shooting at the moment you shoot it. Appears to be a helicopter overhead. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, I hope you can hear me okay. It feels like apocalypse now. Yeah, it did feel like apocalypse now, and even more so when I went to see what was going on, and there was a helicopter dropping sandbags to shore up the bank of the river that had overflown onto the floodplain during the storm that we had at the beginning of January. And so the Environment Agency, I think it was, were fixing this. I couldn't get very close because they closed the footpath off, but I got as close as I could. And again, with the high resolution of the medium format, I was able to get some detail here. It just goes to show that you can go out expecting to do a nature shoot and you end up, something happens and you just have to change tack. And this was much more my sort of thing, more documentary. I do like this one with the dog. I think that works really well. But it's not so much about getting a great shot in this case. It's just about documenting a historical event. I used up about 5 or 6 frames just trying to get one decent shot. And so there was very little left when I went back to my little nature ramble shortly afterwards. So I'm on to my last shot, and it seems appropriate to finish as I started with some fungi. There's some interesting, I think, bracket fungus down there on a broken off piece of branch, and I think the composition with another branch just behind it, which I'll try and get slightly out of focus but not completely, should make a nice picture. I'm having to hold the tripod in place. It's a bit wobbly, so we'll see how we do, but you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So there we go, we have our completed roll of Phoenix 200 at 120. That was a nice little trip out. Next time I shall probably be out in the city doing what I normally do, and probably street photography, but it's been interesting to have that little interlude with the helicopter, which was completely unexpected. Sorry I couldn't show that on camera, but I just had to zoom in and get the shots while I could. If you would like, share, subscribe, you know that really helps me out. But until we meet again, enjoy what you're shooting, take care of yourselves, bye for now.